Now in the studio, the chairman of the Mississippi Teenage Republicans, Connor Gibson. Morning, Connor. How are you today?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me.
All right, so you're not getting in trouble for being out of school, are you?
We'll find that out next week.
Well, this is good, though.
Absolutely.
This is a great opportunity for a youngster such as yourself to participate in the journalistic process.
Yes, sir.
And we wanted to have you on as the chairman of the Mississippi Teenage Republicans to give a teenager's perspective on the party, on politics,
Absolutely.
on stuff going on in our state and our nation. I mean, this is something that needs to be praised. This is something that you should be doing as a youngster.
Absolutely, and that's something I've been trying to encourage, is just getting young people involved and across every corner of this state. So I appreciate you having me on this morning.
Absolutely. All right, so tell us, Connor, first, how large is the organization, Mississippi Teenage Republicans? How many
Yes,
members
sir.
you got?
So right now we have about 75 to 100 members. We're still building back up from COVID. That hit us very hard last year. But we're in conversations with roughly 20 counties across every corner of our great state, from super red counties like DeSoto County. Get this, Mr. Gerard, we're talking to Jefferson Davis County, a deep blue county,
Yes.
about getting a chapter started. So, we're building back up, and we're, ready to come out stronger than we've ever been.
Yeah. So, Connor, when you talk to teenagers, high school age
Right.
folks, about getting involved in the political process, what kind of response do you get? Is there an interest there? Do they push back and say, no, I'm too worried with my normal sort of life as a teenager? What do you hear?
Absolutely. So, it's a mixture. And I think a lot of people, especially around, we see our peak in presidential years and when we have really super contentious elections.
Yeah.
The conversations that I have with people my age, they are generally interested because they realize that a lot of the issues that our elected officials make on our behalf affect our everyday lives, whether
Sure.
it's, I'm a teenager, I go to Oak Grove High School. Members of the legislature determine how many days we go to school, what tests we have to take in order to graduate, how many credits we need to have to graduate. So that's really where we get young people involved, is once they realize that these issues directly affect us, even though we're not old enough to vote.
Yeah, and that's a great point. There are things that certainly impact their lives directly as a student, as a teenager. But Connor, as you know, you're not going to be a teenager forever,
Right,
and so you're
right.
going to keep moving up. And there are decisions being made from a policy and legislative perspective today
Yes.
that are going to affect you and all teenagers and their adult lives. And I can tell you, as one that's on the other side of that, that I worry about that. I worry
Right.
about we all do, as I think, as self-respecting adults. We worry about the future for our future generations, teenagers and their offspring and so forth. It's something that frankly keeps me up at night. How do we get them to care more about that?
Absolutely. Well, we have to, reach them at their level. We need to, come down and discuss it on these levels. And like I said, talk about the issues that directly affect them now.
Yeah.
I just got my driver's license in October.
Okay.
I'm 16 years old. And one thing that we've noticed since the Biden administration took over in January is the sharp increase in our gas cost.
Yep.
And things like that affect young people directly, even though they may not realize that it's directly affected through the decisions our policymakers make. That's how we get them.
Absolutely.
And we also reach out to them on social media. We're active on Facebook and Instagram. I believe we're even getting a Twitter account here soon. So it's just about marketing it, to the teenagers level.
Let me ask you this. Is there a Teenage Democrat association or an organization in the state? Do you know?
I'm not sure if they are. I don't believe they're active right now. I know at one point they were. When I first came into Teenage Republicans in 2018, there was. I think it's fizzled out, which is good news for us.
Yeah. So right now, let's turn our attention to politics a little
Yes, sir.
bit. Certainly at the federal level, we've got an all-Democrat government, if you will, with
Right.
control of the House, the Senate, and the White House, and it just looks like they're moving with deliberate speed to try to ram through the wish list, the liberal wish list. It's
Right.
just every day it's something new. It's D.C. statehood. It's the Green New Deal. Yesterday, late in the day, the president disclosed that he intends to introduce legislation and will at least speak about it next week when he addresses the nation about raising capital gains taxes.
Right.
And the thing that bothers me as a taxpayer is he doesn't really talk about it so much in the context of, well, we need to raise this revenue for certain initiatives or for certain programs, but it's to combat income inequality. It just seems like that we're constantly obsessed with taking those who excel in society and just driving them down to some normal mean, if you will, of mediocrity.
Absolutely, and I've been seeing all your Facebook posts this week about the capital gains tax. I know that's something you feel very passionately about, and I agree with you. And one thing in particular is now that since COVID began last March, we've been seeing the rise in unemployment checks going out.
Yep.
And I know you had Robert and St. John on yesterday talking about that. We're incentivizing people to not work.
To not work.
Exactly. We have people who maybe previously made $400 a week working at a restaurant who are now making $300 just sitting on their couch at home.
Yeah.
And so we need to incentivize people, getting out to work. And I think part of that is decreasing taxes, is lowering taxes.
Yeah.
Because we are conservatives and we believe in smaller government and lower taxes.
Yeah. So I think the conservative mantra and philosophy would be that the minimum amount of taxes should be raised to fund the constitutionally appropriate functions of government. Wow, have we ever drifted away from that?
No joke.
Well, so again, that's something. How do we get teenagers concerned about capital gains taxes? And first of all, I know you read my stuff, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you digging into that and trying to understand that what that means, because a lot of people, certainly the left sells is, well, it only affects the people that have capital gains that are affected by that, and they just don't seem to appreciate that any kind of sweeping economic tax legislation like that truly does trickle down, even though they disagree with that, and impact everybody, including teenagers.
Absolutely. I'm getting to the point in my life now where I got, friends who are now starting to work part-time jobs just to make a little extra money. And what they're noticing when they get their first paycheck is, wow, a lot of it goes to the government. And that's how you get them to care about it. Because at some point or another, you're going to start getting into the workforce. You're going to start, getting a job, paying taxes. Exactly. And that's where we really get them at.
That's a good point. So when you get that paycheck and you see, what is all this stuff they're taking out of my check? And here's the gross pay and the net pay. What the heck happened in between to that? That kind of shocks them into the reality.
It does.
So you can only imagine what happens as you scale it, because everybody wants to keep, hopefully, working their way up the income ladder. And as you earn more, you find, well, I'm just paying more in taxes.
Exactly.
And the left tells us, well, that's just your obligation, so we can use your money to make investments. So now the president and his press secretary yesterday referred to this additional revenue from capital gains taxes as being needed to make investments in child care.
Wow.
So now the government's responsible for taking care of everybody's children.
Apparently, yes, sir. That's very disappointing.
So the concept of individual responsibility and individualism, are these concepts you support?
Well, I believe as a conservative that, each person is responsible for themselves, that we believe in personal responsibility. And so I don't believe in the fact that, the government is everybody's babysitter.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I do not agree with that.
Good, because it seems like we're moving in that direction hard. It's child care, it's family leave, it's child tax credits, it's free education, it's free health care, there's no incentive. Yeah, exactly. So the government is your keeper from cradle to grave, and from that they receive and derive power and often money. They've made an industry out of that.
Oh yeah.
We gotta make that point to young people so that they get how flawed that philosophy is and what the negative consequences of such philosophy.
Absolutely, and that's something we're preparing to do. When we've been rebuilding back up our organization from COVID, where we're talking about how do we market to young people, and that's one thing that we've seen is a very important issue among young people.
Right.
And so we're definitely going to be spending the next year, me and my team, working hard to send that message all across the state to young people.
Now, we got midterms coming up, and 22, of course.
Right.
And so will your organization get involved in that?
Absolutely. Well, we have the municipal elections coming up in June, and so we're getting our organizations involved in those. I believe primary runoffs are this upcoming Tuesday, but the midterms are going to be very interesting, and I know that we are going to get super involved in those, re-electing all our great Republican congressmen. I actually get to vote next year.
Yep.
One thing I want to point out is that 17-year-olds in Mississippi, if they turn 18 on or before the day of the general election, they can vote in party primaries.
Right.
So I actually get to vote next year, and I'll get to register in January to do so, and I'm in the 4th District, so that'll be interesting.
We got a break right here. Can you hang with us?
Absolutely.
We'll talk to you some more. We've got Connor Gibson. He's the chairman of the Mississippi Teenage Republicans. Stay with us, Will.